I don't know how long I've been in outer space, but it's bloody tedious, and the laundry has shrunk all my trousers. I've taken to wearing a spare kilt I found in the mess hall with some egg yolk on it. Nobody seems to care. Shaving in space is a good time waster, so I always look well-groomed. Miserable, but well-groomed. Shaving, getting your nails done, waxing your nipples, or calling down to the engine room exclaiming, "Emergency! We need all the power you've got or we're going down!" And then listening as they go apoplectic before laughing and saying it was just a prank. Oh, how the bridge loves it when I do that. I remember some weeks back, could have been months, who can tell or care anymore, but our fight with the golf buggy people of Nebula 8 went particularly awry when someone, not naming any names, spilt a martini into the firing console, and we annihilated nearly half the fleet before realizing they were just asking for their copy of Fletch 2 back. That took some diplomatic tap dancing not to have a full-scale war on our hands, I can tell you. Since then, I've banned all Chevy Chase sequels from the entire ship. Well, except Christmas Vacation. I love that one. Woken up the other night by some of the crew dragging the corpse of George Peppard down to some of the rookie quarters to frighten the newbies. We keep George in the cargo bay, sort of a ship's mascot, really. He's usually frozen and covered with a special glaze that smells of peppermint so as to keep him upright. I told them to put Peppard back and said if they must haze the new recruits, how about we beam them and their beds all down to the planet inhabited entirely by swans? This was deemed too time-consuming, and so we filled their shoes with pudding instead. Alan was not pleased. That was part 79 of The Astronaut's Diary Lament by Neil Diamond and Anne Hesh, collaborating here for the first time. They are currently working on a musical version, cast entirely using sport casting personalities, and a pamphlet version to be handed out by airport personnel in the event of a fire. And now it's the after-movie diner, which this week comes from inside the nostril of David Suchet while he struggles hard with a game of Sudoku at a dinner party where he's completely forgotten everybody's name. And before we go over to the diner, just wanted to have a quick word with all you lovelies. I hope you've all been checking out aftermoviediner.com. It's obviously had its big revamp and relaunch by now. But we've also got some fantastic new contributors to the site that I wanted to give a bit of a shout out to before the show started. First up, Michael Campuchiaro. I don't know if that's how you pronounce your name, sir, but he is writing excellent cult classic reviews now for the diner, starting off with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which is up at the moment. So please do check that out on the site. And our very own Jay Mayo, local legend and host of Hold the Mayo podcast, is now doing exclusive trauma reviews on video for the aftermoviediner.com, and they are hilarious, fun, and informative. So please check out Jay Mayo's Tasty American Trauma Reviews exclusively at aftermoviediner.com. And you can find Jay regularly over at the Hold the Mayo podcast and corruptaudio.com, where he produces, hosts, and shares many of the greatest podcasts that have ever been made on the face of the earth. So check Jay Mayo out, and also check out the fine writing of Michael Campuchiaro. It's absolutely tremendous, and the After Movie Diner is getting bigger and better every single day. So don't forget, August is Share Month. So if you read something, see something, like something that we post either on social media or on the site, don't forget to share. Basically share. Just share. Share this podcast. Share Michael's article. Share Jay's video. Share everything. share the After Movie Diner, tell your friends, tell your enemies. And now, over to the regular show. Hello and welcome to this episode of the After Movie Diner.
It's not another episode, of course it's this episode. They're listening, aren't they? Hello and welcome to a different episode.
For God's sake, every single week you give me shit about how I start the show. Well, what would you say, genius?
Welcome.
Well,
That's it.
Right. Okay. Hello and welcome to...
No. Just welcome.
Welcome
There you go.
to the After Movie Diner.
Perfect. He's already worn out.
I'm already
My
worn
turn.
out. Yeah, your turn.
That's the strategy. It's always the strategy.
It's always the
see?
strategy
Get
to
inside your head straight
wear me out
away.
and bother
Straight
me
away.
intently. Hello and welcome to the After Movie Diner. Just trying to dab up some wet there. Yes, hello.
They don't know what that referred to,
God.
so that could have been deeply
That could have
worrying.
been deeply
It
awful.
sounded really bad.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you where the wet was.
No,
I'm just going to say that.
I just had to dab it
I'm
up.
not going to tell you.
So
Some of it was on me.
okay, so we're back in the diner, and Jim is with me as always.
Sorry.
How are you guys?
Good, thanks,
good,
man.
thank you.
Good.
Drink water?
Yes, please. Yes, very much. Oh, do you know what you want?
I do, yes.
Can I get a bowl of beef chili with melted cheese?
Okay.
No rice, just on its own. And a cup of coffee. Go for coffee today.
Right, could I get 2 eggs, over easy, with ham? And could I get that with regular fries, please?
Okay. White toast?
Oh, actually, you have steak fried potatoes. Can I get those?
That's the regular fries.
Yeah, yeah. And what type of toast?
White rye or whole wheat?
Rye, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Where were you? Where are we? Where were we?
We were starting
Where
the
will we
diner.
be?
So, I thought this week I would be sitting down to discuss Spirited Away.
Spirited Away.
The animation, the Studio Ghibli or Ghibli.
Ghibli, we had decided.
Ghibli, we
Studio
had decided.
Giblets.
And by your man, what's his name? Miyazaki?
Miyazaki, I think. yeah,
Miyazaki, something like that. Anyway, we're going to watch that. Sadly, as the
It was
video
sold
revealed,
out.
it was sold out, and we didn't book tickets because we're awful and just idiots.
Well, because sometimes we cancel at the last minute if we're feeling blurgy.
Right.
So we usually
you are
just,
often
And
feeling-
no, well, to be fair, because usually movies we go and see, nobody else wants to see them, and it's usually an empty cinema.
Right. So the big
Or there are mad people in it.
or there are mad people there. So the big twist on this week's episode, the one might say M. Night Shyamalan style twist. M.
Wouldn't
Night-
that come at the end?
No, it's
His
coming
twist
at the
don't come
beginning.
it
That's
comes
that's
at
that's the
Yeah,
twist.
he's run out of twist.
The twist is
at
that the
beginning.
twist comes at the beginning. So the M. Night Salamander twist.
He was
is-
dead all the time,
he was
and
dead
then
all
they
the
won't
time.
let you leave the cinema for 2 hours.
No, the twist is that instead of going to see instead of going to see a good film, that kind of buries the lead. But instead of going to see what is a critically renowned artistic masterpiece of cinema and animation, we instead said, we kind of debated it a long time as we walked down from 33rd Street.
And by debating, we listed movies that we didn't want to see.
We didn't want to see, we argued, we bitched, we moaned. We were a couple of old women, really, and I mean that with no disrespect to old women, more disrespect to ourselves before the PC crowd start coming in here and dragging me off and beating me with sticks for insulting old women.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Although,
yeah, that could happen, and it wouldn't be a bad thing. So, the plan was head to 14th Street Regal Cinema, walk in, find something playing, and go see it. Now, the pickings were, well, let's say on the slim side.
extremely
They
slim.
were they were tissue paper thin.
yes, they were.
We had the options of such wonderful films as the Ghostbusters remake, which I already.
Although I didn't see that up there.
I put a veto on that.
Okay. Oh, maybe that's what Ghost was.
You put a veto on Bourne, the fourth one, although I would have gone to see that.
I would have gone to see Ghostbusters.
Right, but I put a veto on that. There was Bad Mums,
Which we might
which we weren't going to go see. There was
We might have considered the Shark one, but that wasn't playing.
Shark one with your Blake Lively.
Right.
So that really only left what, Jim?
Star Trek Beyond.
And as we got into the cinema, it was 6:40,
Yeah.
and the time on the thing said 6:30. I went up to the desk and asked, and she said, "You've got 8 minutes."
Yeah.
So I was like reluctant, but I went, all right then. However, luckily I found out I had one free ticket somehow through some sort of Regal
Which
club
I think
card.
took the edge off having to go and see
Took
Star
the
Trek.
edge off just a little for me, having to go see this damn film. So,
Thanks very much.
So yeah, I didn't mind so much, and so we went to see Star Trek Beyond,
Star Trek Beyond.
which is such a hodgepodgery. It's kind of going to be difficult to
Well,
condense.
can I just, so let's
But
just,
I'll hand it over to
Let's just start here.
to my balding colleague.
let's
and
just
ask
start
him.
here. It's not balding, it's happened. You know what I mean?
No, you've still got hair.
Yeah, but I mean that the... Yeah, all right, I see what you're saying.
You've shaved
but
it short.
It
and
sounds
suits
like
you. You've gone
I'm
Statham.
pretending.
I like to say you've gone Statham.
But like, it feels like...
Go on, do Statham.
Hello, can I be in good movies again, please?
No, that's not fair. He just hasn't been in a lot of movies lately.
Yeah, all right. He was in Spy. Spy was good.
Yeah, but you've got to do Jason Statham.
I could
like
do
that.
Jason.
Jason.
I like Jason.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, carry on. So Star Trek Beyond, then go on. Give
All
us,
right. So the
give us
first
the
thing is
lowdown.
okay. Clearly, there's going to be a split here, so we may as well get the split out of the way right away and say, yes, I think you should see it. Right, in terms of the should you or shouldn't you see it thing.
Oh, okay. Should you or shouldn't you see it? Yes, you should see it. I'll
Okay.
tell you why. Because although it's buried quite a lot of the time, there is a good movie scrambling to get out under piles and piles and piles and piles of atrocious CGI, non sequiturs, and just the worst directing I think I've seen in a
Yeah.
blockbuster.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. It was badly.
But there is a good movie under there, and if you're a Trek fan, an old school Trek fan like I am, because before we start this, anyone who hasn't listened to our previous Trek episode, because it was 4 years ago, I'm kind of original series only. Like I like original series. I like the first 6 movies, and that's kind of where I end with Trek. No offense to Next Gen, no offense to Voyager. I know that a lot of people like that stuff, and that's all groovy. Everyone has their James Bond, everyone has their Indiana Jones, everyone has their captain of the Enterprise, everyone has whatever. Indiana Jones was a bad example because the same guys played him, but you know what I'm saying? Everyone has their period in time. I'm Shatner, Nimoy, and DeForest Kelly. That's my bag.
Yep.
I make no bones about it. And I think if you're a fan of that original Motley Crew, and you're a fan of Star Trek being about something rather than just being either tedious and or a rip-off of previous Star Treks, or trying to be Star Wars, then there is something in this. There is. That old school Trekkies would love. It's also the 50th anniversary, and as a Bond fan, I even went and saw Die Another Day, because I think that was like the 20th Bond film, and it was the 35th or 40th anniversary, something like that.
Wasn't Skyfall one of the
No,
anniversaries?
Skyfall was then the 50th anniversary, but like, anyway, so whatever.
Happy birthday to you.
I think you-
It's terrible. Film.
Yeah, but I do think you owe yourself, if you're a Trekkie of any kind, or a Trekker, as they
Yes.
prefer, to go see this. So I would actually, surprisingly, be on your side.
All right, okay, well, okay. First of all, so actually, that's kind of weird because it sounds like we are going to agree. Because I'm with you on nearly everything you said, pretty much. I thought everything about it that wasn't... The only bits that were directed well were the bits involving the ship. Like, the way the ship would move. Clearly, he liked the idea of like how the ship moves in space, like gravity, anything to do with the environment and the vehicle. And I can see why he's gotten famous directing Fast and Furious films, in other words. But what puzzled me about it was how bad the action scenes were, how bad the fight scenes were.
Yeah, well, let's.
All right, yes. Okay.
So
anyway,
I'm going to let Jim do the plot and try not to like spoil everything.
yeah, I agree. Thank you very
Because
much.
there is a twist, and it's a twist that I would like to keep.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Hidden.
So,
Because it's going to be difficult and to talk about this for me, and I'll just preface that. And the reason why it's going to be difficult is because it redeems itself in its last act. A lot of the problems I had with it are in the first two acts. Thank you. And we can't really talk about the last act too much. We can talk about the action, but we can't really talk about the plotting. So
Fair
it's
enough.
going to be a bit of a minefield, but we'll have at it.
maybe we can think of some kind of shorthand upon, like when we talk about, like
We can talk about the MacGuffin and all that.
we can talk about why don't we give labels to things like the bad guy,
The bad guy
and
is
like
fine,
the
yeah.
MacGuffin,
The
and
MacGuffin,
whatever.
right, yeah.
Right. Okay. So all right, let's start with plot then. Jesus. Okay. The plot basically is
a bit all over the place,
it is
but
a bit
also
all over the
it's
place.
also
It's
quite
actually-
simple.
Yeah. So let's go with the simple version. So
It's a great escape in space.
yeah, the simple version
The middle
is
of it, isn't it?
they are in a space station, and Jim Kirk is a little bit. I found that there was an opening that I thought was quite affecting, and it raised something that I've never seen called out in Star Trek before, which is, yes, obviously, the episodes of Star Trek that you watch, you know, something's happening. Even in Star Trek The Next Generation, they're rushing to get to a planet to, you know, make a treaty before the deadline or whatever, but something's
Right.
happening. But they call out the fact that, you know, we've been in space 3 years, and how many days there are that would just be the same, and there's no, and it would just be like blackness outside.
Right.
There's literally nothingness out there. And there's this feeling of ennui that's coming over him.
But the
and there's
script is chock full of like good ideas.
yeah, and there's a great shot of Kirk opening his wardrobe, and there's like 8 identical uniforms. And him having like a kind of
Yeah.
expression. That was like, it was a nice joke, and it meant something too. So anyway, in that state, they arrive at the space station, and Spock wants to leave. Kirk wants to leave. It's all kind of, nobody's talking to each other, but they're all a bit tired, they're all a bit fed up. Anyway,
Oh, and they've got proto MacGuffin that they've saved from a planet.
oh yeah. So sorry, yes. In the opening scene,
I mean proto MacGuffin because it becomes Mega MacGuffin by the end of the movie, but like proto MacGuffin.
right. So,
We can just call it Jeff.
okay, yeah. Just before they get to the space station, they're on an away mission where they come into possession of an artifact. Anyway, they rather at the space station, a distress call comes in from within a nebula. Only the best ship can go in there because it's going to be like really tricky to navigate. So, and as any Star Trek fan knows, you can't beat a bit of, I guess we're going to have to go into that unknown nebula area. It's always,
Right.
always cracking.
Where, by the way, all our communication with Starfleet is going to be
Right. Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's set up Star Trek crew going into a place where they can't be reached by anyone else and they will only have their wits to save
Right.
them. Coupled with the idea that as they fly into the nebula, one of the neat things at the beginning of the film was that Kirk says there is no such thing as the unknown.
It was quite good. To temporarily hidden.
That's
I think
it,
that was
right.
the name,
Well,
Yeah, not a great line, but a nice idea.
it's a nice idea. It could have been punched up a little bit. You know what I mean? It could have been like something like variations on a theme would have been like a nice way to put it, because what he's saying is, you know, we faced enough, you know, space battles in the past that if we go through this nebula and there's a space battle on the other side, we'll know what to do. You know?
Yeah, agreed. So anyway, they arrive at a space station with an artifact and a sense of ennui. Then
The fact that Kirk's character finally by this third film is becoming the cocksure captain of the ship that we know and love.
Yeah.
From the original.
yeah,
And Chris Pine He's really he's the
good.
best thing in this movie.
Yeah, he's very good.
He's really good at being Shatner.
Yeah,
and
he
I
is.
hate saying that, but he's really good at being Shatner.
Yeah.
All the others wobble horribly
Yeah.
from their borderline impersonations. But he's really good at being Kirk.
There were bits when it was honestly like I was watching a young Shatner, like, really, and I didn't feel like it was an impression. It was like something. It was really good.
Yeah, because he doesn't do the Shatner that everyone else does.
No,
he
he's not.
does. He plays.
He's
Kirk.
not doing mannerisms. He's doing like reactions and feelings and like the character of Kirk.
Of Kirk. Anyway, sorry to.
Yeah, he's doing the character of Kirk, not the actor Shatner. Is what he's doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they arrive at the space station with a sense of ennui and an artifact. A distress call comes in from inside a nebula. Only the Enterprise can go in. So the Enterprise go in. At which point they're attacked in quite a cool way by a bunch of things, which caused basically the ship to crash. All of the crew members then end up dispersed around this planet.
And a lot of them end up being kidnapped.
Yeah, some of them have been imprisoned by the bad guy, a bloke named Krull, right?
Krull.
Which is a good, solid Star Trek villain name.
It's basically Khan meets Krull, but whatever.
Right.
With 2 A's.
Yeah. And so you've got an injured Spock and Bones together. You've got Kirk and Chekhov together. You've got
Which makes Chekhov, all due respect and rest in peace to the dead, but it actually makes his portrayal of Chekhov almost bearable.
Yes, agreed. Scotty ends up with like the new character, who is actually, and believe me, I'm a fan of all Star Trek, right? All Star Trek, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
And there have been a fair number of
Generic alien
spunky
women.
female aliens in my time. She is genuinely a good one.
Yes,
She's got a character. She's got an interesting way of speaking and moving and the whole thing. And
She's thought about it. She's doing something with
yeah,
the thing.
and it is genuinely a good character. Anyway, all of them have their different concerns, as you would imagine, when they're all split up in groups. But it's, as Grossi says, there's a very old school Star Trek vibe going on. The idea of stranding the crew on a planet in different groups where they have to get back together. And stop the bad guy from accomplishing his plan is, it's a good, solid Star Trek.
And it would have been
that's basically what it is.
Right. There's then a whole Great Escape homage in space.
Yeah.
They get everyone out, and then, I was sort of thinking halfway through, I was like, well, this is all too easy, and I don't know what's happening, and I don't know what the MacGuffin is, and I don't know who this villain's meant to be, and blah, 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 blah. And this is what I meant earlier was, while I understand that narratively the answers to the questions I had would be explained in the third act, and were completely satisfyingly explained in the third act, more or less. You can't have... It's a sign of a poor director, a sign of a poor shepherd in terms of shepherding the script and the action. It's a sign of a poor thing if I'm left halfway through the second act going, what? What is this? Because, there were so many nice things that I wanted to geek out on in the opening 2 acts that kind of fell a little flat to me because of the way they were presented.
Yeah, I agree. There's 2 very good examples. And I think a lot of it's to do with the fact that I think there's 2 problems going on here. One, he doesn't know anything about Star Trek. And that's fine, you don't necessarily need to. But it meant that there were a few moments that could have landed that didn't land because he didn't know.
Right.
And my example for that is, in order to escape the ship, at one point, they shoot out the view screen and jump through it. Now that, for any Star Trek fan, is a super cool idea because, what is it? Is it a window? Is it a view screen? What the fuck is that thing? So to shoot it, smash it into pieces, and then jump through it to escape, it's like a big moment. And the director, because he doesn't know that, because he doesn't know it's like a bit, a kind of cool big moment, it just.
It's not only that. You've got the. Yes, I agree with that. There were multiple points, by the way. There was the bit where basically the Enterprise is all but destroyed.
Right.
And again, that should have been way more effective
Yeah.
and affecting to old trekkers like ourselves than it was. Like, I didn't feel the emotion of that.
No.
There was something lacking in that. And I think a lot of it had to do with the idea that the attacking force, while very effective, was basically a bunch of like whizzing CGI niblets that you couldn't really tell what the hell was going on with it at all. And then all of a sudden, the introduction to the main villain is just this like generic alien beastie stomping around, like quoting stuff off, and does he have a history with Kirk? Doesn't he? Who is he? What is he? Like, but it wasn't even effectively hammered home. Like it
Well, that whole sequence, like it got to a point where the whole sequence was a mess. You didn't like.
Where was everyone?
Yeah.
Where were they escaping to? How were they being
How the hell
taken?
did Spock and Thingamajig end up in that ship?
Right.
There was a bit where Spock was in an escape pod. I know he was in an escape pod.
Yeah.
And then the next time you come back to him, he's in an alien ship.
But what about the bit where Uhura's meant to leave Kirk on the disc part of the ship, and she flies off on the neck thing?
Yeah.
But that
Yeah, for
wasn't
ages I was
clear.
like, wait, are they on the ship?
Wait, is Kirk on the thing? Is he on the... Like, there was no awareness
There's a
of
point
where
where-
anyone was.
No, because Kirk at one point says,
Like, that's
Yes.
the whole thing. Because
yeah, when the thing came down,
Uhura effectively sacrifices herself, as far as we're concerned, by trapping her and the bad guy in the neck of the ship and going down with that, while Kirk is left in the top half
Right.
to kind of assume control. But that wasn't clear.
No.
I didn't even know that till Uhura said it an hour later.
and when the
script.
thing was coming down, because there was a line in it, I think, where Kirk said something like there's no crew on the disc, or something like that.
Right.
So when the disc was coming down and crashing and all the rest of it, I didn't think anyone was on it. I thought it was empty. And then I realised, oh no, wait, everybody's on the disc. It was really confusing.
They all escaped and then got kidnapped by... It was very weird. Like,
And that's what I mean. Like the whole thing struck me as, you know what you say about Nolan in A Dark Knight Rises,
Right.
where he's only interested in some bits. Like this whole film felt like that to me. There were bits that he was interested in, like and there were like cool bits. The way the city looked was very cool.
But
And
the way the city looked was straight out of Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, and I know that like revolving space station Elysium style thing has been done multiple times.
yeah, I
but
suppose so.
the whole thing.
But it still looked good. It still looked good. It looked. I liked the way that the ship came into dock underneath like the main thoroughfare.
Yeah.
Like where the river would be. Like it looked almost normal for a minute because there was a river and there were tall buildings by it, and then you saw the ship going. Like that was cool. There were like little bits like that.
No,
that
there
were
were.
cool.
And then there was this whole bit where like Kirk says, "Oh, we have to get back to the ship." And he's like, I think, but there's nothing there, Captain. And he's like, oh, she still has a few surprises left,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I can't really go into it, but there is a classic Kirk switcheroo fake out that he's done before,
Yeah.
which was so like it. I knew what had happened narratively. In other words, I knew he'd faked this person out, but I didn't know whether they had the MacGuffin. I didn't know quite. Like,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
all
it was
the
very
stuff
confusing.
around the fake out didn't make any. So the trouble is something that I would have normally enjoyed. Kirk and Chekhov getting the better of Person X was sort of lost because I was like, wait, what? What's going on? Does Chekhov?
You're right. There was a lot of that.
Does Chekhov have the thing?
Yeah.
Does
you're
Kirk
right.
have the thing? And
A lot of the enjoyment was spoiled because you didn't quite know what the hell was going on.
right.
And it wasn't in a kind of like existential way. It was just simple narrative.
Action.
Like things
Simple
like, where are
narrative
they?
action.
What's going on?
Right.
Who's got the thing that they want? You know, and it's just distracting you. You know?
No, and I said something when we were talking about Get Mean. We were saying that the fight had no weight in the beginning because you didn't quite care about anybody or what the thing was you were meant to concentrate on because it was just a fight for a fight's sake. And there was so many moments in this movie where I was like, I knew what had happened. in terms of like, well, I guess I've just got to put that to the back of my mind because on we go to the next thing. But I didn't know what had happened in terms of the little intricacies of the plot. And my big problem with it is it's all explained in the third act in bits of dialogue. But it's things that shouldn't need to be explained in the third act by bits of dialogue. They should be things you are apparently aware of. This isn't like this makes me sound like I'm talking about some big complicated plot twist. I'm not at all. I'm talking about things we should abundantly be aware of. Yeah. Do you know what I felt like? I felt like in the first half of the movie there were no cutaways. You never saw anyone's like hand on a button, or someone put the MacGuffin in their pocket, or someone grab it. Like,
yeah, you're right. Like some little hint that something had happened. Like in at the end of Wrath of Khan, for example, when he bends down and whispers in his ear, like just like little things that like you don't have to explain them, but it's sort of a thing in the audience go, oh, you'll find out more about that later.
Right.
Just an idea of a guy that's got control of the script, like he's got control of the movie, and it didn't feel like that. Sorry. Yeah, thank you very much. It felt to me like he knew. He read the script and he thought, right, I'm being paid a bunch of money to direct this, and they want to turn this into an action film, so I've got to try and make it an action film. And all the bits where there were no action, where it was just people on a screen talking, were really good. They were really good and effective.
Yeah.
Anything that involved action was confusing and it wasn't tethered to the narrative. And that's because, like, it wouldn't surprise me, for example, if I found out, or if we found out later, that all scenes just involving like actors in a room were directed by somebody else. You know what I mean? And they brought him in to like just supervise the CGI or whatever. But it was just like, I wonder how it was with the. I can't believe the fight scenes in the Fast and Furious movies are that bad.
No, they're not.
Like there were flashes, like on top of the spaceship with the two of them, when that could have looked cool. But again, it's like he just didn't have the heart.
Well, he does one of two things. In this movie, he does one of two things. He either has big, sweeping, away from the action, CGI heavy shots of the camera whipping around planets, while two figures we're meant to care about are fighting on top of a thing.
Right.
Whether it's the ending with Kirk and Mr. Bad Guy, or whether it's alien lady that Spock, alien lady that Scotty befriends fighting her nemesis after the Great Escape. His camera's like whipping slowly around with like dramatic music and everything else. Or it's cut to incredibly close up, shaky cam, fist going somewhere, none of the punches hitting, and there's no in between. Like you're either like all the way up close in the face being wobbled about the place like a crazy.
I tell you what the problem is here.
Or, and I have to say, part of me didn't mind the big expanse shots because the score was really good.
Yeah, the score was very
score
good.
was perfectly. No, I'm good. I'm going to use my knife for that. The score was perfectly on the right side of like histrionic and operatic, without ever sliding over into bullshit.
No,
you know, it was a good score.
I think my big thing about it is it shows you why Marvel pick directors who work better with actors and dialogue than they do with action, because they know that these days action is a function of CGI houses and committees and you know what I mean? It's like different people in charge of different things, and yeah, you need somebody on top of it all to like call the shots, but it's like you're far removed from it. What they need to make it interesting and compelling is somebody managing the actors and managing the narrative and making sure the story's getting told.
Yeah.
Now obviously there's hits and misses, but I never come away from a Marvel film like feeling like I didn't know what was going on. Sometimes they disappoint me, and sometimes like the studio, like the problem with Marvel movies is when you feel like the studio got too involved, but that's about as bad as it gets.
Yeah,
whereas
definitely.
this one, I feel like they chose a guy. We need to. What people care about in Star Trek movies is the action. We're worried about the nerdy stuff, so let's make it pop with action.
Right.
So let's get a guy that's you know done nothing but make a shit ton of money for us.
Which sort of isn't the point of the script either. I mean,
no, that's the trouble. It's not where it doesn't serve the script, and I feel like the big problem with getting him involved, right? And again, I could be wrong, But I would think that what happens in the Fast and Furious is a continuous series of things that are cool, or that Justin thinks are cool. Cool cars,
But you have to
cool
understand,
fights.
Fast and Furious is Vin Diesel.
No,
He
but-
tells Justin Lin where to point the
Sure.
camera.
But nonetheless, what I'm saying is that when he's shooting a fight, or when he's shooting a car, or a woman, or guys walking into a club, or whatever the hell's going on in those movies.
Yeah, it's all just cool
It's all
stuff.
things that he thinks are cool.
Yeah.
And I felt like all the problem when he had that the two of them, the woman and the alien, like fighting on top of the spaceship. There was a moment there I thought, oh, he's going to engage with this. He's going to engage with this fight because it's great scenery all around. Like, we're really invested in this fight because this guy, you know.
But you only realise that like halfway through the fight. Like there was no indication that was Mothra or whatever she called him.
Right. Yeah, yes, you're right. There
Like,
wasn't. But
that's
anyway,
another thing that I mean. Is like there's this big emotional sequence where she's like, "I'm not going with you because these people killed my family," and blah 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 blah. And you're like, "All right, I'm on board with that." And then she talks about this guy, Mothag or whatever his name was. And you're like, "All right, we better look out for Mothag because I
Yeah.
bet she has to fight him."
Right.
And it wasn't until halfway through the fight where he says the awful line about like, "This is just how I killed your father," or whatever. Where
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, wait a minute, is this Mothag?" Because there
Yeah.
was no
Yeah.
like. And that's the other thing in Wrath of Khan. And look, I use this only because there is a Khan aspect to this. Like, imagine if when they got the SETI Alpha 6 in Wrath of Khan, he kidnapped a whole bunch of people and they had to go save them. Meaning that the way Khan is shot, it is clear from the way that people interact around him and the way they talk to him that he's top dog. The guy with the feathered mullet is, Mr. Number 2. He's the one who's going to point out, like, Khan's inadequacies and should we really
We have a
do
ship and the means to go where we will.
Right, that guy, right? And then you know that the others are like just general cannon fodder and or minions. But you're set from the moment, because it's a slow introduction to the character that is based on menace and suspense and tension and dialogue and all that other stuff. You know where you are with it. The moment you see him, you're like, all right, okay. Even if you haven't seen Spacey, the original Khan story, like you know where you are with it. And with this, you can't say the same.
No, I agree, but this is what I'm saying. So in that fight, right, you feel like maybe he's going to get engaged with it, but then you realise that he's not engaged with it because he doesn't think it's cool. He thinks it's a bit silly. He thinks this like woman dressed up, because like some people do think Star Trek's a bit silly. People like dressed up looking like aliens, but they're just wearing funny things on their heads and pretending like what's going on. And like you can see how some people in the world, particularly, I might add, I would think that the crossover between people who think that really fast cars and hip hop music and Miami Beach and like Vin Diesel punching somebody in the face, people who think that is cool, and people who think that Star Trek is cool, that subsection would be pretty small, I would argue.
And it's me.
No, but listen, I'm not saying that you can't enjoy Fast and Furious. I'm saying that you sit there going, yeah, man, this is so cool, that car is so cool. Like that kind of attitude. That's two completely different sets of people.
Right.
So when he's looking at this fight happening, he's not thinking, awesome, she's fighting the bloke that killed her dad, let's make this land. He's thinking this is stupid. Some stupid alien bird fighting another stupid alien. Like, he's not, whatever he's good at, he came into an already established franchise, right? He came into an already established franchise with already established characters with the brief to just make ridiculously cool things happen with these characters. And he did that in space and made a shitload of people a shitload of money doing it. But that's not the guy for a Star Trek movie, right? And they did this before, by the way. They sank Star Trek in the first place by landing them with an action director who didn't know or care about Star Trek. The guy that directed Nemesis, I forget his name, but he'd done a couple of action films, and they got him to do this. And he was like, he kept referring to, the blind guy in Star Trek Next Generation. He kept referring to him as an alien. He kept going, yeah, the alien goes over here now. And they'll go, he's not an alien. And I'm his point is, I don't care. It's all, this is all fucking stupid. And that's why the film tanked. And that's why this film doesn't work. Now, if you don't mind, because I think this is important, I think we should transition over the fact that this is leaving out the original Star Trek movies, I enjoyed this one at least as much as... I just got something very self-conscious.
No. Keep going.
At least as much as... other than First Contact,
Right.
this is my favourite Star Trek. Like, in terms of enjoying it.
Right.
I enjoyed it far more than the first one. I haven't even seen the second one, so I don't even know.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't even know
The
how
J.J.
bad.
Abrams
I don't even know how. But yes, the Into Darkness.
Yeah, I won't.
I have no idea whether that's good or not.
No.
I don't have a clue. But what I do know is I really, really enjoyed watching this one. Like, I really enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, I
That bit, which again I'm not going to give away, but the bit with the music was properly making me smile. I really liked that. I thought that was super cool. I know it was cheesy, but I liked it. I like a little bit of cheese every now and then.
I've got a beer here.
You'll have to put a warning about people eating before listening to the podcast as well.
The music bit worked narratively, and it was charmingly done. But it was like a lot of other things in this movie. Only just.
Yeah, okay, I go along with that. He did his best to sync it.
Oh yeah, completely.
My guess is when
My
Simon
biggest-
Pegg,
my biggest
when
problem-
Simon Pegg was watching this movie, I bet it was a succession of him going, he ruined that bit too. Like the joke about Spock contemplating his mortality,
Yeah.
and then getting woken up by Bones because Bones is really worried. Like, you can see how that would be a funny scene.
Right.
The Bones is like, Spock,
Right.
oh my God, Spock, blah, blah, and then shakes him. He's like, what? I was contemplating mortality. Like that's a funny. But he cuts out the beginning of the joke,
Well, there's okay.
so it's just him shaking, going, Spock,
So,
Spock, Spock.
so there's two problems. There's two big problems with the film.
Okay.
2.5 big problems. Spock is awful. The guy who plays Spock is absolutely.
I liked him more in this one, but I'm still not a big fan.
This one he had to do a lot of weighty stuff, like a lot of Spock moments, right? They've decided, for whatever reason, that this new iteration of the Enterprise and of the original crew is more Spock's story than Jim's. They've woven Jim's into it, you know what I mean? And like there's little bits of Kirk in this. And there was moments, which I did love, where they tried to get the dynamic of Bones, Spock, and Kirk together, which is what it's actually meant to be.
And that was a
about.
great bit.
It's never actually meant to be about one person.
Yeah.
It's about the balance that the three of them bring. And it had those moments enough. But for whatever reason, they've decided this is Spock's franchise, mainly because I think Nimoy was knocking about and he wasn't as a divisive figure as Shatner. But anyway.
I don't think it's that so much as I think that Lynn is more comfortable with a storyline where, he's lost his father figure and he's a bit sad. Like I can see how at some point in the
They started with the J.J. Abrams one. The first film is all about Spock as well. He's made the whole franchise about Spock.
I'm not sure I'd agree with that. I felt that this one was much more about Kirk. Even this one was much more about him coming to terms with the idea of what it means. No, I'll be alright. Thank you.
No, I mean,
him coming to the idea of being the captain, like being the captain of the ship, and what that would involve, what that would mean, and all the good and all the bad, and him turning into that guy. What I loved about it is, when they had that, this was what was so super cool about it. There was a moment right at the end when Spock looks at. I thought that was such a cool moment. I know it's like a bit cheesy, but he's looking at a picture of Spock as what, and he's there, and the camera pans over Scotty and Uhura and Kirk and all of them, like the actual crew from the end of Khan. I think it's Undiscovered Country actually.
Yeah, it's the second one.
So the final one, and it's like this is. What's happening is this. Like, it doesn't. Those movies happen. Is what the film's saying. They happen. This is an alternate timeline, all that bollocks. But these movies happen, and it reminded me.
But it's also talking about the unity of the crew.
Sure.
Because all the way through, Spock is possibly leaving, and by the end of it, he's resigned to stay.
But what it reminded me of when that end bit, and Kirk's wandering on, looking forward to get back into space, is that thing that Shatner had as Kirk, where he never wanted to leave the ship. When he left after Khan, he didn't want to, and then he was restless in undiscovered country because he wasn't captain of a ship, but he takes over command. All that thing that he can't. All he wants to do is fly. And to have him begin the movie being like ennui, and then at the end of it, all he wants to do is get back out there, that's a really nice arc for him. Because I felt like that connected him to Shatner, to Kirk we know.
I agree. And so there's the director was a misstep. It really just was.
Yeah, it was a misstep.
And there are real narrative issues
Yes.
in the first two acts that, yes, are cleared up satisfactorily in the third act, but what you're meant to do with a plot point that arrives at the beginning but is solved at the end is to make it obvious that plot point arrived at the beginning.
Right.
Not make it so that you go, wait a minute, is that something I'm meant to pay attention to? Oh no, wait a minute, we're off to the next thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's, and then the last thing is, I think that the script could have had one more pass. It really could have done, to like iron out, even if it was to just insert some dialogue into the opening acts that.
But I feel like things got cut. I really feel like
that might be the case.
That scene where
that might be the case.
I feel like that scene where Bones shakes Spock away, and Spock jokes, "Oh, I was just contemplating." It doesn't land because the moment before should be Bones quietly saying, "Spock,
Yeah.
trying to wake him up because he's sick," and him not responding, and then he panics, and that's how the joke lands. For that not to be there suggests to me that he's going away, he's cutting up bits of dialogue he doesn't care about, and I think that's a lot of where the confusion comes from too.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like Peg's thinking, I'm sure he'll insert a cutaway here so that we know that thing's been put, like just things you would expect the directors to do, and maybe it's even in the script, and he either doesn't know or doesn't care or couldn't be bothered or they didn't get the shots or whatever. Like we've both seen our fair share of movies here that didn't get the shots.
Yeah.
And I actually feel like when you cut out all the CGI from it, it's quite a low budge movie, really. It's mostly just a couple of people on screen, on a set. Like sometimes it's just like the woods or whatever, or some rocks. It's pretty cheap. I noticed there was a shot of like the crew. Like, oh, and here's the crew of the Enterprise. It was the same people in the same stretch of corridor, like 3 times. At completely different times of the timeline. Like when we first got there, towards when just the battle's about to begin. But it's like the same guys in the same stretch of corridor, which suggests to me that they didn't get the shots and they didn't have an awful lot of money. Which, given that it's the third film of the franchise, second one only did okay, we're just seeing if this is going to work or not. It feels like they didn't sink a lot of money into it. So it wouldn't surprise me if they looked at it and went, "There's stuff we didn't get," and they went, "Forget it, that's it."
Yeah, but I don't know. I always find it a little dangerous when we hypothesize on here because I really don't know.
Well tried.
But there's editing issues and there's directorial issues and there's either scripting issues and or the editor and the director hacked it down to make it a more whiz-bang, pacey affair and kind of gutted some of the earlier scenes. And that is problematic and a shame. Especially because there's some really nice things going on.
There's some good jokes.
Specific.
I like
I mean, the guy who plays Spock is, and I understand he's slightly better in this than he was in the.
He was a lot better. He was watchable in this.
But
I forgot he was a guy impersonating Spock.
I get that, but he is awful.
Yeah,
like he's just not a good actor, whether he's playing Spock or whether he's playing
it was bad casting because they cast somebody. Here's the problem with it: they cast somebody who looked a bit like Leonard Nimoy instead of going like with Chris Pine, where they went, "We need to find somebody." When they went with Pine, right, regardless of the problems with the first Star Trek, they did find somebody who at least had like Kirk's charisma. Like if nothing else, even if everything else was going on, he had that.
I buy him as a captain. I do.
Right.
Yeah.
But what they didn't find, the equivalent for Spock, was somebody who had Spock's charisma. It's a very different kind of charisma. It's gravitas. It's I'm gonna no matter what the fuck's going on. Yeah,
Most
it's
of the time
dry
wit,
but it's the ability with lots of explosions going on and the ship falling to pieces and everybody freaking out to go. I wonder if we shouldn't try this. And for everyone to go, and listen. And he's not talking loud. He'll go, for God's sake. It's just, and there's something like magnetic about it. And there's plenty of actors out there who could do that. Like, there's plenty of actors who, like, they raise an eyebrow and it's hypnotic. I actually think it's a bit of a shame the way they use the guy that played the bad guy in this movie, Idris Elba. Thank you very much. The guy that played the bad guy in this movie, Idris Elba, they've cast him in lots of things since then. And they've usually gone with, he's got a lot of, like, natural, magnetism.
Which I don't think he does.
But what he does is, in The Wire, which is what made him, he's not that guy at all. He's an accountant. But he in The Wire, he had the ability he was Spock in The Wire, basically. He was a guy that sat very quietly, while everything's burning around, was able to go, we should try this, we should do that. The whole thing with him is, I'm a high-up drug dealer, but I have an economics degree, and this is all business. It was very calm and...
Right.
And again, he had the ability to, in the middle of chaos, say something quiet and calm, and everybody would stop and listen. And that was why he was great. And they haven't used him like that since then. They've let him, I don't know, it's always problematic when you turn like a side guy into a main guy. Does that always work? And in his case, I don't think it does. Although I think he will be good in the Dark Tower. But anyway, they needed that for Spock. And I don't care if he looks like Nimoy or not. And I realise that they're trying to go for... I mean, I find that personally, and this is the one thing that I admire most about the whole movie. And I realised it at the moment when... and I don't think... Maybe it was Lynn's idea, but I'm guessing it was Peg's. When Uhuru reaches up to broadcast and she flicks an actual metal switch in the ceiling to broadcast. And I thought, see, that's... I like the fact that they use the old... They got rid of the old thingamajigs in Next Generation. Like, they want to make it a Star Trek film. And they could have done anything with it.
I was going to agree. I was going to go on to that, actually. But it comes back to the problem that I've had with the whole idea from the get-go. And that is, why, when you could tell a story about it, I mean, this story of... Because basically the overriding metaphor of the film is we're better together than we are apart. It's the whole idea of it is testing the ideology of the Federation.
Right.
And what I liked about that is we're kind of facing that right now in the world. Right. And I've always said my big problem with modern Star Trek is that it doesn't do that. It tries to be Star Wars, essentially, with aliens and good guys fighting each other. And there's don't worry, there's like a ton of that in here as well, that I was a little like, should this even be in here? But what is nice is, and again, it's that third act that tightens everything up. It really is. It's like the first two acts are like a rope blowing in the wind, like on a sailboat, off a sail. And in the last act, Peg and Pine and everyone else run in, grab the rope from Lynn and go, heave to, the sail straightens up and the boat goes off to victory. And it really feels like that. And so this whole idea of the Federation ideology being tested is a really nice metaphor for right now. We're very fractured right now, and there's a lot of division going on in the world right now. And the forces of hope, whoever they be, whoever your flag bearer for hope be in the world, are talking about like unity and unifying and pulling us together and strands of blah 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 blah. So I liked that. I liked that it had that callback. But the biggest problem you have is that it's an absolute cul-de-sac to make it the original crew and force these actors with varying degrees of success to like walk in the footsteps of people who have come before who've been beloved for 40.
I know, I agree.
So,
it's a big problem.
And what I'm saying is, if you want to make Star Trek in space with a whole bunch of people like banding together and waving the Federation flag and saving people from an alien gulag or whatever, you can do that without it having to be bloody Kirk, Bones and Spock, especially if you can't find a cast that can do that adequately. And I'm sorry, as much as I like your Judge Dredd guy, and I do like him and stuff, he's 50-50 on Bones. Sometimes he nails it,
I agree.
and sometimes he doesn't. Again, that could be down to shooting, editing, time constraints,
I agree.
script, whatever.
It was true in the first one too.
But there are sometimes he absolutely nails it, and there are other times where he just blows it.
I agree.
It's a real shame.
Listen, I'm with you on that one 100%, and I feel like what they could have done. The thing is, I'm kind of torn about it, right? Because financially speaking, I get where they're coming from. because they tried to make what you're talking about. And they made it with, like, First Contact was, no one would say this, but First Contact is only half a good movie. Everything that takes place on the ship is fucking amazing. And everything that takes place on the Earth is the worst of Star Trek Next Generation. Weak jokes, terrible acting, and things I could give a shit about. But on the spaceship with Picard and the Borg, it's awesome. Really, really good. Everything after that from them was terrible. Really bad. Even the last one was not good. And so it tanked the franchise, and it was the end. And there was no TV series, there was no movies, it was over for them. And they decided to reboot it. Now, in order to reboot something, in order to start it up again, you can't just go, all right, we're going to do what we did before. We'll get a new crew, we'll start it, but this is our idea now. It doesn't work. What they've done instead is, they've gone, okay, well, look, Star Trek was popular, these characters were popular. We've come up with a way of retelling that crew without, and I like the fact that they could have just gone, but people have rebooted or done origin stories without giving a flying fuck about the originals they made, and they have respected them, going, we're doing an alternate timeline, so that still exists. Spock will actually be a character, and that respect for it. I get that, but I agree with you that the problem with that whole thing is that you are left with, at best, a movie that, while you can enjoy, you never, ever are allowed to forget that they're doing impressions of other actors.
But not only that,
Except the point. He's the only one who, all the way through, I'm not thinking about Shatner.
No.
Everyone else, I'm thinking about Chekhov, I'm thinking about Sulu, I'm thinking about, Bones. I'm never thinking about Shatner, and that's the strength of Pine in the movie.
Like, there's a bit in the movie where Kirk hands over to Sulu and says, take the car.
Yeah.
And Sulu sits down in the captain's chair. And as much as I kind of have a real big problem with the way Takei has been towards Shatner, especially in the last 20 years, because every time Takei is interviewed, he brings him up, and I'm like, it's irrelevant now. Like, can we leave 40 years? But I just kept thinking, like, how much more weight and how much more cool that would have been if it was Takei taking the chair. And then when there's a really great bit, it actually only really happens in Undiscovered Country. But there's that really great bit at the end of Undiscovered Country where Christopher Plummer's going mental and quoting Shakespeare everywhere, where Bones and Spock have to go, like, tamper with the torpedo, right? To put, like, the homing thing in it or whatever it is, the heat seeker. And there's that wonderful thing of the two of them working together, and Bones being like, I would pay good money for him to shut the hell up, which is amazing. So, for whatever reason, whether it's an homage to that or whether they wanted to, like, do a Bones Spock thing, which I very much welcomed, was very happy about, there are several scenes in this film with just Bones and Spock. And there's even one bit where you've had a whole bunch of Bones and Spock bits, and you think it's going to be Kirk and Spock, and then he's like, I think Bones should go with you, right?
Which was a really good moment. Really, that was a great moment.
It was a great moment. But when they're whizzing about in the spaceship, or when he's, like, helping him out in the cave or whatever, I'm sat there and I'm going, I just wish I was watching Dear Boy and DeForest Gilling. And
right.
it's not that I wasn't involved in it, because I obviously can look past them to the characters, but I'm just like, this patter would be so much better, and I just want to see that movie. Yeah. So I'm sat in this movie, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm getting what they're trying to do, and I'm liking the fact that it is a hodgepodge in the same way that the Skyfall kind of was and Die Another Day kind of was. It is a hodgepodge of things gone before. There are Wrath of Khan nods, there are Undiscovered Country nods, there are original series nods, there are, like...
There's even nods to some of the Next Generation movies. The saucer coming down into crashing the way they did was right out of one of the shit
At one
ones.
point there's a nod to the Big Green Hand.
That was a good joke.
Right?
That was a good joke.
So, like, that was cool, and I enjoyed all that, but it does make you go, I just wish I was on the couch watching Undiscovered Country.
Yeah,
and that's the biggest problem with it, and I don't want to be that guy, but I appreciate everything you say about the reboots. But
no, listen, I agree with you. In other words, I like what they did.
I did.
Right. I understand why they rebooted the way that they did, but having made that decision, right, the suits having made that decision and handing it over, every decision they've made since then, I'm on board with. And any problems I have with it are flawed by the nature of seeking to reboot the series in the first place.
Yeah.
But the fact that I was sitting there and I was thinking, the fact that the uniforms are the same, the fact that they've still got the same silly little phaser guns,
Yeah.
you know, the fact that they've got the little flippy communicators,
so I wanted to talk about
all
it,
that
yeah.
stuff, and all the they've got flippy switches and
Yeah.
like chunky chairs, and it's all like, let's embrace the aesthetic of it rather than
Yes.
yeah, you know, let's give them all like, because anyone else would like, let's dress them in black. Could they wear black?
And look, I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that they should have done models for the spaceships, but it did mean, because they embraced. There was also that cool bit where Spock and Bones come to like the mouth of that cave, and they have that line about, oh, it's dark and spooky or whatever.
That was a good joke.
I don't know if you saw behind them, but it was all this like gold and blue like painted rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was like a set. It was like an old Star
Yeah,
Trek
yeah,
set that
yeah.
was painted and da-da-da-da-da. And they'd like painted like roots and vines and stuff all
Thank
over
you very
the
much.
place, which I was really digging on.
Yeah.
And I was digging on all the like phasers and the communicators and the stuff like that. And what it meant was, thanks, man. What it meant was that the CG, there's two big things. First of all, I'll accept the big spaceships and the planets and all that have to be CGI. But the little spaceships didn't work. I mean, they worked.
No, they didn't.
They worked narratively in terms of like having little spaceships attack a big one was kind of cool. But CGI-wise, they didn't work. And the other thing that didn't work was the MacGuffin. The MacGuffin was, what was the MacGuffin? It was nothing. It was like a CGI vapor in a box.
It was very weird because it was like, because it was a thing that was, it was always been better if it had just been a black box, you know, and they'd said it's the most powerful weapon in the galaxy.
Right.
If anybody opens that box, we are all fucked. And
Yeah.
then it just like floated in the space, a little black box.
Right.
They're like, fucking hell, don't open the box. You know what I mean? It would have
Right.
been fine. The box. But instead it was like, oh, it's like a vapor, and when it touches you, it like eats you in like maybe 10 seconds. Well, how's that? Like, just, you know, wait for it while it's eating somebody and then put a box around it. The end. Like, it's not...
No, wait. The
It wasn't a
MacGuffin
thing that was like...
badly thought out.
It didn't, like, grow and, like, oh, it... Because if there was some explanation, like, oh, well, it starts off small, but then it grows to, like, you know, 2 million% every second until it's, like, covering the entire planet and we're all dead. Something like, this is why it's a threat, by the way. Not,
Right.
That's what I mean, like...
And also, by the way, I don't envy a scriptwriter sitting down and being like, what have we got to do with this franchise now? Like, there are only so many stories.
That's
and
true, but
rehashed-
that's what I like about the like you say. Well, we can't go into the twist, but the twist did it tied into everything nicely. It made everything clear. It was a nice explanation, and it had and also
But it
I like the
needed-
way Uhuru came to it as well.
Yeah.
Like, I like the idea of them turning up this idea of like not just that she's communications, but like she knows voices and she knows
Right.
sounds. You know what I mean? That was cool.
The use of all their special gifts,
Yeah.
they all got a moment to shine, and I
Yeah.
like that. And I also like the way that, like you say, it all wrapped up, it all tied up, the metaphor was good, the thought was good. But for that to work, ultimately, you need to string that throughout the film.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
the
I really think
it's
all this
really
could be
obvious.
laid at the feet of the
Yeah,
director.
and
really.
and the editor, but like the thing that you know, not to bang on about Wrath of Khan again, but it is nigh on a damn near perfect bloody film. It really.
Well, you know, this is.
But
sorry, just very quick. Can I say one thing? Because I think.
No, I'm saying the circular thing
Oh, sorry.
of him feeling old and like.
Yeah.
Forget me going over Wrath of Khan. A good director and a good writer knows that there is meaning and a point to everything that happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Even if it's a throwaway joke, the most successful films, the most well-written films, the most
Yeah.
well-crafted films, there is a reason that every single thing happens, right?
I don't like to lose.
Whether it's
Yeah.
right, whether it's starting off with the Kobayashi Maru and establishing the idea of the no-win situation, whether it's him starting off being old and, you know, why are we treating your birthday like a funeral, and blah blah blah, to it ending with
Twice, Jim.
a funeral,
Yeah.
and him saying I feel young. Like, I know it's obvious, but it worked. Like in a 90-minute film, those little things work.
Yeah.
you know, and I constantly come back just because it was the one thing I was taught about in film school. But like the idea of the watch in Die Hard symbolizing everything that Holly Gennaro thought she wanted when she moved away from John McClane, and being the one thing she has to give up to kill the bad guy in the end is this stupid watch, right? And whatever it is, whatever your circular plot, bring it back up in the final act thing, it kind of needs to, like that theme, whatever that theme is, needs to be thread through the whole
Well, but that's
film.
because that's the thing.
And the problem with it is because the bad guy wasn't established,
No.
and he wasn't given his own. Like normally, the bad guy has his own subplot, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like we keep cutting back to the bad guy.
Him trying to accomplish a specific goal. Right.
And none of that. He was just an antagonist until the end, when suddenly they're like, "Huzzah! Here's the thing."
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, no, you're right. And again, I think it's what happens when you choose somebody who knows how to direct action and not characters. The thing about Fast and Furious is, let's not necessarily go. They're already established characters, so he doesn't have to worry about developing them. Right. It's like, the action scene's going to pop, is it going to look great, which it does, brilliant. But he's not the right guy for it. Better off getting somebody who doesn't know how to direct action at all, but who knows people, who knows characters. Especially someone who really loves, because it feels like every single way that this movie worked, right? It worked because Peg loves Star Trek. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why it works. And he
like,
knows what's going to land and what's going to pop and what's going to make people go, yeah.
It's in the costumes. It's in the props.
But I'm
it's in
talking
the
even like the plot points.
No, I
the things that happen. Like the thing with the music is a very Trekky thing to do. Like
Right.
to solve a problem in that way was like. I was watching it go, this is great. Like I could see like Scotty, pressing play on an old Walkman to like make something happen or something like that. Do you know what I
get it, and it's no more ridiculous than having to bring whales from the past into the future to get the probe to go away.
Right.
It isn't, right?
See, this is why, by the way. This is why, just very quickly. This is why I have a lot of hope for the new series, because your man Mayer is involved.
Nicholas Mayer,
Nicholas Mayer is
right.
involved. And anybody that wants to get Nicholas Mayer involved in anything to do with Star Trek needs to be given as much money as possible.
Right. But so I loved the setting. I loved the costumes and the props and the character beats. Again, if it's going to be about, like, if the idea at the end of it has to be that both Spock and I think it's too tall an order to have both Spock and Kirk have the journey whereby at the end they both have to make a decision to be together.
Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of too much. Because if it's Kirk's thing, you can follow that thread throughout the whole movie. And
When
if
did
it's Spock's thing,
when did Nimoy die?
Nimoy died this year, so it was probably.
So I wonder if it wasn't put in there as a kind of a nod to that.
And I have to say, as sensitive nods go, it was really good.
Yeah, it was.
Like,
it was great. It was really good.
really
And even the shot. And to be fair to him, I even liked the way that he shot it. It was very plain and matter of fact, like where Spock was stood.
Yeah.
He was just on his own. And he was looking out into a relatively blank sky, and there was just like a weird kind of old metal structure next to him. And that was it. That was the shot. It wasn't busy. It wasn't crowded. But it wasn't overly sentimental. It was just like really simple and nice, and it was cool. But I'm just wondering whether, given the timing of it, whether, like you say, it was weird to have them both go through that same journey, whether they didn't like retrofit that in afterwards, and it was supposed to be Kirk's journey, and that's why it didn't quite land.
In terms of being a greatest hits of what the fans love, I think, about the original series and the original series films, it works as well as can be expected based on the fact that you've got a whole new cast trying, to be completely honest, their absolute best to fill the shoes of these iconic characters. And it works to have a nice plot that ties into what's going on with the world, but it also ties in with the characters. That was very nice. It's, if I've got to like quantify it, it's like probably my sixth favorite, because I would take probably Wrath of Khan through Undiscovered Country before this one. I may
Yes.
even take the motion picture.
I'm not sure I would take 3.
No, but 3 you have to watch as part of
I
the
agree,
trilogy.
but that's
of
why I
2,
don't like it so much, because
Right.
of how badly it fails that trilogy.
that middle trilogy.
You know, it's so because Khan is so good. Voyage Home is such a, it's a great movie, and all the ingredients are there for 3. You've even got Christopher Lloyd, but it's half-assed. There's no script. It doesn't go anywhere. No. So I would go 2, 6, 4, First Contact, 5, 1. No, what happened before 1? I don't know, it's tricky.
I don't know, because it's
I
50.
actually quite like 1,
It's
weirdly.
50%, and this one, Beyond, is 50% and amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not overstating that. There is.
I really feel like it could have. I really
It's
feel
so
like it could have
agonising to
jumped.
come out of it
It could have
and-
jumped into Khan, Undiscovered Country, First Contact territory.
Yeah.
If it had been directed properly.
And I didn't even mind the retreads and the nods
No, I
and
didn't
the
either.
homages and anything
You know,
like that.
I think about what you were saying, right, about that casting problem. I feel like they could have gotten around it with, like I'm okay with what's his face doing an impression of Bones and only hitting it 50% of the time if Kirk is okay, if Spock is okay. And simple things like Sulu works because he's not trying to do an impression of
No,
Decay. He's just a guy playing Sulu. And I feel like Chekhov, just hire a fucking Russian, right? And then he doesn't have to do a silly accent and not say his W's properly. He can just be a guy named Chekhov with a Russian accent. And we can forget about it because what is Chekhov except every now and then? Okay, he says Wessels every now and then. But nobody really likes when Chekhov says Wessels. People like Chekhov when he's like saying cool stuff like "Guess who's coming to dinner," with
Right.
when it's a believable like mad Russian accent. So just get a fucking Russian to play him. That's it. That's what you got to do. That's the way to fix that. All of that.
Yeah, no, he's too. Accent and
And you know
whatever
what?
besides.
I figured
he's
out what's
too.
wrong with Spock. You know what's wrong with Spock?
Well, he's off.
Right, but one of the biggest thing is it's the voice. Nimoy has this voice. It's deep and resonant, and
Yeah.
it just demands to be listened to. And that's why Idris Elba, Stringer Bell, has got the same thing in The Wire. He speaks in this. It's slow and deep and resonant, and it demands to be listened to. And that you need to hire that guy. But somewhere out there's a guy who looks a bit like that Nimoy, who speaks like that. Hire that guy. That's all it is. It's
Right.
no trick. It's not like. Now that I think about it, it's not like, where's his magical charisma box? You know what I mean? No, he just speaks slowly, this deep, resonant, hypnotic voice. And so every time he goes, I think the problem might be in the whatever, you go, what? You want to hear?
Right.
And hire somebody Scottish to be Scotty. There's too many off-putting things going on without people putting on crappy accents. It's already, you're faking being,
Yeah,
you're already
okay,
faking
so-
being Scotty, you're already faking being Chekhov. Don't fake an accent to fake being Chekhov. There's too many fakes.
So problematics, other problematic things. Scotty's use of the word lassie all the time was off.
that was boring.
Even if it was authentic,
He was actually-
I don't ever remember him saying that in the
No, I don't know that. Actually, he was pretty good in this, and I liked him, except when he said the word lassie.
Yeah, there was something off-putting about it. And the second thing is, I don't know whether this was Peg geeking out. I don't know whether this is a reference to something. But every single character constantly having to say, oh, wait a minute, I can cue long, spurious technical jargon nobody cares about.
That's
rattled off really, really
That's
quickly.
not one of the best things about the later Star Treks, and I say best in a kind of a giggly, absurd way, is how they can solve pretty much any problem known that's ever happened to anybody ever by rerouting the power from the warp coils. It can be solved every time.
No, that was fine, but there was a lot of extraneous dialogue rattled off at a pace while explosions and music and everything else went on that I was just I don't know whether it was Peg trying to do a running joke and it kind of not hitting the mark.
Well, again, it does. I think you're right. I think it is a running joke and it's not hitting because everything that was happening in those scenes was overwhelmed by explosions and action and CGI and where are we? What's going on?
Right.
So everything that was happening was totally lost, and I think it was a good running joke because speaking as, and John would agree with me here, on series like Voyager, there's constant the drama is like punctuated with people standing over machines going, if we reroute the power from the warp coils, it might be enough. Like, it's always, it might be enough. And it's fun, and it's kind of silly. And I think to constantly have that, as like you say, turn into a running joke works, but not if the guy directing it doesn't get the joke and doesn't get the shit.
See, there was some, like in the first bit when the Enterprise is under attack, like, all the people coming on in suits and all the rest of it were very boring and awful, and I was
they actually looked like the soldiers from Halo. It was so unimaginative.
Like just another shitty thing. Well, it was like the first one with fucking Banner was another boring fucking villain with a bunch of people you didn't care about. They have a real problem with villains in this series. However, the nice bit though was when like the corridor was obviously like turned on its side and they were all sliding down.
Yeah, that was super cool.
was all sliding down, and it was all done practically.
Yeah.
It was like any time anything was done practically, I was happy and amused, and
well, again, but I think that was.
I just wish it was all kind of a bit like that.
I think that was a moment that interested him. I think he liked the idea of playing with gravity.
Like, okay, this was another thing that was in no way explained.
Right.
Mysterious alien girl that Scotty meets. When he first meets Scotty, has been set upon by a couple of, I don't know, random aliens toiling in the woods, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And suddenly, she has multiples of herself and overrides the bad guy and then is just one of herself, blah, 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 blah. And later, Kirk does.
Yeah.
Right? And there's that smoke bomb thing that he walked into that's a trap that solidifies. Again, none of that was explained. That he suddenly is able to like drop off the back of his motorbike at will and do blah, 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 blah. Because none of that had been either explained, set up, sold, or anything previously. And I know in the script says like, we set up this stuff because she has the power to do it and she has this trap that blah 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 blah, so when we see Kirk use it later on it's meant to make sense. But I didn't feel like when we saw Kirk use it later on it had the
you're right,
the weight or sense to it that it should have had.
You had a moment going, hey, what's this? Oh, is that the thing?
That the thing?
And then go, I've missed 10 seconds of action.
Right.
I'm trying to remember what the fuck it is I'm seeing. And again, that strikes me as cut. Like, there's a scene somewhere on a cutting room floor
where he's like, how did you do that last scene? She's like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah.
Right. Or, hey, what was that thing with it copies versions of me? Or he could go, hey, that's neat that you get copies of versions of you. Like, obviously can't go into it too deeply because it makes no sense. Like, how do the non-versions of Kirk know where to motorcycle? Like, they're all cycling around a quite complicated path.
Right.
Like, if it was just like copies of him, then how do they know where to go?
Right.
Like, why are they not just like cycling through?
Yeah, and there's also,
solid, whatever?
I mean, there's huge leaps. It's funny, you can accept some leaps. Like, I can accept it when Scotty first goes, well, this wasn't made for human transportation, so I did you one at a time and blah, 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 to jump forward 30 seconds. I think I can manage 20 people. You're like, all right, I'll take that leap because you're Scotty and I accept you're superhuman and blah, 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 blah. But by the same token, we have 50 years of explanation of who Scotty's character is that allows us to suspend disbelief during that point. We just met this Jack, and we don't know whether it's a superpower, whether it's an alien power, or whether it's... And then suddenly Kirk has it, and you're like... And also, because the whole big thing was, we've got to cause a distraction. And then we cut to Kirk, and he goes, I know exactly how we're going to do it. Right?
Yeah.
And the way you're going to do it is with a bunch of stuff we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Or we've seen before, but haven't been sold.
Yeah, also, like, I feel like the bike thing could have been handled a little better. It was like, oh, here we are in a room, and there's a moving picture, and this is there's just a room, and oh, there's a motorbike in the corner. Right? Why is there a motorbike in the corner? It doesn't take much. I'm sure that but he doesn't care. There's no way that in the script, Peg's like, and then he walks over, and there's a motorbike in the corner. No way. No way he wrote that in the script. It was in a case, or it would have been in a big garage.
No, Lynn was like, I tell you exactly what happened. Lynn was like, so wait a minute, he's breaking him out of space prison? Yeah. Let's do it like The Great Escape. Let him be on a motorbike. Because I know how to do motorbikes.
No, I don't think so. Because I think it was a callback to the first movie, with like
him on the
space
which
bike.
in its own thing was a homage to Top Gun, but whatever.
Right. But I think the Great Escape. If we're talking Great Escape references, I put that with Peg, not Lynn. I think what happened is in the script, they walk in something like this. They walk into it like a huge room, right? And it's a garage, and it's full of like broken down trucks or whatever, like something you might expect in a first out of Earth spaceship. Like they would have trucks and vehicles in it, and it's a big ship. Like it's not like a teeny little shuttle or something. Like it's a big proper fuck off ship. So there's space, and then he would have like pulled off a thing and. There's a bike. My dad used to have one of these bikes, and it's like a callback to his dad.
Right.
And then him going in there, and it would have worked. But instead it's like Lynn's like, I don't give a fuck about that. He walks into the room and there's a bike. Big deal. Like it's just like, well, there's no connection. It just looks like, oh well, I wonder if the bike's gonna like come back into it. You know, it doesn't take
that
much.
was the other thing. So the villain saps the power of humans, and that keeps him alive or something, right? That was another thing.
Yeah, that was
that
never
could have been.
Yeah, like terrifying and creepy and
terrifying.
Weird, yeah. I was like,
And
there'll be more of this
instead,
later, and it'll be really scary.
Two things drop either side of him. You don't have time to register what they are.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he's like, woo, and like getting all the energy from them with like mystical beams going everywhere and his face all glowing and stuff. And Uhura looks, disgusted. And only by the end of it, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, are they two humans hanging from the... there was no...
Yeah.
Do you know the other thing I think? The other thing I think is I go, Firefly was, 10 years ago now?
Yeah.
I'm like, Firefly looks so good.
Yeah.
The spaceships look great. The action is great. The plotting is great. Like, even...
do you mean Serenity specifically, or just the whole thing?
And the whole thing. But even Serenity as a film, and that has a big space battle in it, it's engaging and interesting because you've been... Like, you care about what's going on. Like, you care about the characters and you care about the battle, and it comes at a moment where you're like, what is Mal going to do? And then you're like, boom, and you're like, yes. There were so many moments in this that were written as fist-pumping Kirk moments, right? But fell flat because of the way it was edited.
I agree. It's all...
Like Shatner can make me leap out of a seat and throw my hands in the air just by flipping open his transporter and going, Spock, are you ready? In Wrath of Khan, when they're down on the Genesis.
Yeah.
And you think all hope's lost and they're buried alive, and he's shouted at Khan and blah, 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 blah. And he's just casually eating an apple.
Yeah.
And you're like, why is he so...
Yeah,
Rather than the fact he's going like that, he just goes, are you ready? And he's like, I don't believe in the no-win scenario. And it's like, I'm out of my seat. I've seen it 100 times and I'm out of my seat. There wasn't one of those moments in here that was sold. There were plenty of moments like that written that I had to make the leap.
I'm telling you, the first time Peg sat down and watched the car, he would have been mortified. Mortified. Because I know from experience when you've written something.
He's had to swallow a lot, when you've been going into Hollywood.
When you've written something and it's really good and you know that it works, and then it's just cut to pieces and ruined for no reason other than laziness and not getting it, you would be just apoplectic, so upset. And I'm just talking about the obvious things that I spotted. I don't know what script he wrote, but I'm telling you, if he cut that, he cut lots, and it would have driven him bananas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good script, and to be fair, all the reviews I've read of it say the same thing. They say it's a really good script, it's a proper Star Trek film. It's not like the criticism level of the first one, which was, listen, it's an exciting adventure movie, but this isn't Star Trek, Whereas this one is, as you say, there's a point to it, they're trying to make a point about the Federation, they're trying to make it relevant, and succeed in making it relevant to these times. I did feel, like you say in that third act, that it was speaking to me about, the times.
The third act is great. I just wish the rest of the movie was like that.
Yeah. Even that bit, the bit with how they actually stop it. I mean, not the final fight, but how they stop it is it should be this really cool moment, but it doesn't land because it's not quite properly set up.
Right.
Try and push him towards this area. It just doesn't land. Like you say, so many things are set up and they don't land, and it's all the fault of the director. And I feel like if you had someone who was good with narrative and good with characters, they would make sure that whatever the CGI house or houses or likely were working on would tie together, would tie in with the script, and those moments would land properly. Because, hey, we're paying money for these, so let's make sure they're going to hit in the way that they can, instead of, well, these are the only bits I'm interested in. Because if you're only interested in those bits, then they're not connected to anything. It doesn't matter if you make a film about will we not get to rob the bank. Like, yes, you will. Are there going to be enough car chases? You know what I mean? Like, that's fine. And if all you care about is the car chases and the fight scenes, then that's cool.
Right.
Totally fine. If and everything else is filler, and let's make the characters look good, and let's have Vin Diesel, I don't know, find his dad or whatever, and that's
There was
fine.
a few cases of hand-to-hand, or a few moments of hand-to-hand combat in this film, and they were actually handled really atrociously.
Yeah, they were really bad. And again, I think it's because he thinks they look silly. I think it's the whole, like,
I don't
that
know why
aliens
they
dressed
put
up
him in
thing.
there.
Well, there's some reason why he's not. The things
Anyway.
he's connected to are he liked the idea of what you could do in zero gravity or reduced gravity.
Yeah.
Which worked really well. He was interested in the idea of how ships move and how things move in space, which was really, really cool. He was interested in the way that such a big ship could maneuver. He was interested in the idea of how future cities would look and work in this cold. His whole thing was how things move in weird gravity in space interested him. And I think that's why he was signed up for the movie. He would have been generally interested about filming things, fight scenes and battle scenes and ship scenes and whatever, in ways that would allow him to do things that he couldn't do in Fast and Furious movies because they're not in space, you know.
Oh, there's some pretty far-fetched...
Sure, but I'm saying,
baloney.
like, actually, you know, we're talking about, like, you know, how a huge, gigantic starship would, like, move and how it's, like, perhaps swarmed and...
I guess so.
Those are the things he's interested in, and everything else he couldn't give a shit.
I also think there is an aspect, and this is a way a suit would think of it, but I think there is an aspect of the strength and success of the Fast and Furious franchise has been the idea of this motley band of people being family and working together.
Right.
Whether they're one side of the law or the other doesn't really matter, whether they're...
It could have worked, but
whatever. And I think, no, what I'm saying is people are like, oh yeah, he's good at action. Oh yeah, and he knows how to do ensemble.
Yeah, see, I think the problem was that it
But
could
it's a
have...
different...
It could have worked. The only reason it doesn't work... Here's my theory, right? It could have worked, because like you say, motley group of people, he knows action, he knows big franchises, he's a big enough name that people might think, well, this could work, this could be interesting. So like the fans aren't going to be turned off by it.
I'm just thinking,
And
I
I think
understand
when they
why they
interviewed
got
him,
to him.
when they interviewed him or when they talked to him, I bet he sounded interested and enthusiastic, because the one thing he wants to do is prove I can do more than Fast and Furious movies. If I can, like, make a big movie for them and Star Trek, maybe they'll let me do other stuff. You know, maybe I can make the space movie that I want to make, because maybe there is one that he wants to make. You know, like, that's how you break out. You know, he doesn't just want to be the Fast and Furious director. The one problem with the whole movie is he doesn't really give a shit about Star Trek. He doesn't really care about the characters. He
Well,
doesn't
neither
really give
did
a shit
J.J.
about Star
Abrams,
Trek.
to be fair.
Well, no, maybe not. But at least he had the wisdom to get people involved who did care. Like, even if they, I mean, not initially, like those two.
No, the director, the cinematographer, and the writers of the first two don't care about stuff.
No, that's true. I know, I would agree with you. Yes, okay, I would agree with you on that one. But this one, there are people involved, and Pine is really good. The script is good. It's not always well set by the direction, but it is good. I mean, I would put it up there with some of the best Star Trek scripts, no question. There were really great moments.
Idris Elba was good.
It's a fun movie. Elba was great, because it's not easy, but he was actually quite an affecting, charismatic presence. Even though he had no story and nothing to do, he was still giving it the beans. And he was really good at the end, I thought. There's lots and lots and lots to like.
Peg wasn't as grating.
No.
Yelchin wasn't as grating.
No, they were all more comfortable in their skins with what they're doing. And
The only one who's terrible is Spock.
yeah.
He's awful.
But I was still
He's
more,
awful.
I was still more comfortable as well with the idea of just letting it be, like going, okay, so it's, you know, it's an alternate universe. It's not the same people. They're doing their own thing.
No.
I was more comfortable with that idea.
Yeah, and I don't want... my comments earlier notwithstanding, my comments earlier were just to make a point about the thin ice you walk on doing something like this.
No, I agree. I'm completely in agreement with you. I really, really am. I didn't think I was going to be. I thought we were going to have a stand-up, knockdown row about this because I was going to say it was really fun, and you were going to say it was really shit. And actually, we both agree.
It was
a good, fun film to watch, but it had huge flaws that stopped it from being great fun.
Yeah, and that's my reason for not liking it, or my reason for having reservations about it, rather, because I did like it, weren't down to the fact that this cast are now doing this, and how dare they take my beloved Star Trek. That wasn't my message this time, and I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that's what it was.
No, I know.
I was just trying to make that point earlier that, you know, no matter how good one of these can be, you'll sit there and go,
with you.
But it's not.
They chose people. The problem was, I think.
But I think we're going to start repeating ourselves. So we should probably wrap it up.
You're right, but very quickly. I think the problem was that when they picked people, Scotty was not Scottish. He was doing a fake accent. So we'll just get someone to do a fake accent because that worked. And then Chekhov wasn't Russian. He was just doing a Russian accent. And we're going, okay, well that's fine. We'll just get someone to do that. But then you run into that faking a fake. And it's too much. You're better off having somebody being Russian or being Scottish, you can forget about it and you can feel like.
See, I would actually argue that Peg, certainly in this one, is playing it as authentically Scottish. Now I know he's not, but I think he's not playing Scotty. He's playing it as a Scottish character.
I would go along with that.
My biggest problem with Chekhov is not Anton Yelchin, you know, may rest in peace, but like my biggest problem with it is he was a little bit more sarcastic. He was a little bit more grumpy. He was a little bit more sardonic in the original series, and now he's this like squirrely, whiny.
Yeah, he's got a
babbling character,
like a puppy dog kind of thing.
And that's not his character.
No.
In the first one, like you say, the whole thing, he's a bit like, guess who's coming to dinner? It's that whole.
He's a bit like, oh shit, that's it. That's basically his character.
He's also like the other thing is Chekhov is one step away from being the red shirt that when you get down onto the planet, you're like, well, he's a bit expendable. And the nice thing about the way Koenig used to play it is I think he kind of knew that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like he became, over the course of the original series and the movies, a beloved character. I don't think when they were writing him to begin with, well, the reason to put him in, of course, is to go, the Klingons are not the Russians, they're the Klingons, because look, we have Russians as part of the crew. So because they were in the middle of the Cold War, they were like, well, if we put a Russian on the crew, that indicates that all that is over. But he's also like, you know what I mean? Like, he's borderline expendable, really, because you could probably get. But the way Koenig played him, endeared you to him to the point where by the time you get to Wrath of Khan and his like, he's being threatened and his whole like, is Chekhov going to live or die thing throughout the first half of Wrath of Khan is earned by that point, because you want him to live. You don't want Chekhov to be taken over by earworms. You want him to survive. So, but that's
oh no.
But that's earned. And Yelchin.
No, I agree.
He's a bit nerdy and a bit twitchy. He plays him like a kind of whiny, squirrely character.
Yeah, he's like a puppy dog kind of thing. Like, oh, he's so enthusiastic about space. So, I'm enthusiastic about space. I don't expect people to like watch me in a movie. I agree, but okay, I'll say this to finish up, right? Because I think sometimes the trouble is when we talk about things like this, we spend most of the time talking about things we didn't like about it, so it sounds like it's not good. I really enjoyed watching the actual experience of sitting in the cinema, watching the movie, start to finish. I enjoyed it. I should have enjoyed it more.
70%, 65% of it. There were some bits I was really uneasy about.
Well, I enjoyed the whole thing, but without disagreeing with what you're saying, I was just able to skate over those moments a bit easier.
Yeah, to be honest,
but again, that's because
I didn't go in with the most like open and relaxed of minds.
But
I will admit,
again, sometimes the things that allow you to enjoy a film more than me, if the individual elements work, you're happy with the movie, even if overall it didn't quite hang together. And for me, if it just about holds together, I can forgive some like not structural, like the things that make it up, things that fall short that would grate on you, like the directing, the action scenes, and what the hell's going on, stuff like that. I can I'll skate over it because I'm kind of enjoying what I'm seeing. But I would say this, right? I now, if you told me tomorrow that they're making another one scripted by Peg about, say, the Klingons, right? Like the next chapter is about the Klingons, and they get a good director in, not Lynn, I would be very, very excited about seeing that movie.
Yeah.
Having seen this one. After as soon as I found out about the second one, what it was about, and I saw the reviews coming in, I thought, I've got no interest in ever seeing the film. I still don't. And so that was it. I was like, oh, that's a shame, because the first one was okay, I kind of enjoyed it. It's a shame that it's dead now, and that might be the nail in the coffin of Star Trek, which is a shame, because I love Star Trek. But they made this film, and I feel like even if they don't make another one, it's at least got CBS to make a really good series with really good people involved, and I think it's going to be a really good show.
Well, not only that, but
I'm happy with it.
They've done a neat thing at the end of this one, and I don't think this gives anything away. They've done a neat thing whereby at the point when this movie ends, right, even though it's a different timeline and blah, 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 they're about to go off.
Yeah, basically on
the
original
missions
series
that you would see on the original series.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they have come full circle.
So if they chose to end it here,
If they
that would
chose
be
to
cool,
end it,
yeah.
it absolutely works. You've had 50 years of a great storyline, 50 years of a great crew.
Well, I'd be interested to know how much money it made, because that'll be the thing.
And it you know, you will start then with the original series with Kirk Loving being captain and none of those internal problems going on, and he knows how to fix problems, and all the crew are together and they're all on the same page, and any kind of fractious thing. And it's interesting because it does kind of mirror what was going on with James Bond franchise when Craig took it over, that then Mendes fucked up, which was the idea that at the end of Quantum of Solace, he had become Bond. He'd proven not just to M, but the whole of MI5 that he could be trusted, that he was Bond, that he wasn't out for himself, it wasn't a revenge mission, that he understood that it was about Queen and country and blah, 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 blah. And now he's ready to be Bond with all the bells, whistles, gadgets, babes, soundtrack, and the whole bit. And then Mendes came in and was just like, okay, well, let's.
But what about if he's got issues with his mum?
Yeah.
Fuck off, Mendes. Well, I mean, we're not going to get into it, but I fucking hated Skyfall to the point where I've got no interest in Spectre at all. I've got no interest in anything Craig and Mendes have to say or do with Bond.
No.
Not easy to keep a franchise going. And you would expect.
Oh no, and in other words, avoid men who wear flouncy scarves.
Yeah, well, that's definitely true. But you would expect a franchise to go if it takes a steep dive in the second film for it not to recover. But I felt like not only did it recover in this one, did this one better than the first one.
Yeah, and I would also argue
if you enjoyed the first film, you'll enjoy the shit out of this.
Where we are in the world right now with movie making.
Blockbusters,
tent poles, Marvel films, all the rest of it. All of which, by the way, I think have run their course.
Yeah,
I can tell you that this summer, out of all the blockbusters that have come out and everything, I have seen exactly 3 big budget movies in the cinema. And that was, not big budget, but so-called one was The Nice Guys with Russell Crowe.
I really want to see that, so I haven't seen that, but I really want to.
Ryan Gosling, really good. Second one was Secret Life of Pets, because Kim wanted to go see it, and it was passable fun. It was fine. And then this one, I haven't seen. I didn't see Civil War in the cinema.
No, I haven't seen
I didn't see Ghostbusters. I didn't see.
So wait,
what are the other big ones that have come out this summer? I mean, all of them. I haven't seen any of them.
Born, yeah, but anyway. But I have an interesting question. I wonder if I wouldn't enjoy this more.
Sorry, to finish up.
Oh, yeah.
So considering where the state of blockbusters are today, and considering where the state of the Star Trek franchise was, as a summer blockbuster, coupled with the 50th year in a franchise, coupled with being the third sequel, or the second sequel to a rebooted franchise that was tricky at best, it succeeds far better than it has any right to.
Agreed.
That's what I was going to.
What I would like to do, because of all the problems that we point out, which is a lot, I don't know where we are or what's going on, and that distracted from what I was seeing, and how confusing and messy the big CGI scenes were. That I'm actually quite looking forward to watching this again on a small screen.
Yeah.
Where I feel like it would be a lot less busy. That all the affecting moments, which were the smaller ones, would work better in a more intimate, like a smaller screen anyway. The whole thing would be less confusing. Plus, now I've seen it once, I already know what's happening, and I might be able to enjoy it.
I agree.
Look, fuck it, man. If they're dragging Maya into then he's still kicking, he's still breathing,
Maya
he's
should
still
have done
making
the
decisions.
50th. Maya should have done the 50th.
They should have got Maya back.
Can you imagine if he'd directed this?
It would have been really good.
Oh, it would have been so good. It was good, but it
was
could
good,
have
but
been.
it could have been Maya good.
It could have been.
That's our capsule review. It was good, but it could have been Maya good.
Yeah. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, wow, that was a long one. It's 20 to 11.
Jeez, really? How long were we talking for?
We're talking for like an hour and a half, dude.
Oh, okay.
Right, with that, let's say goodnight. Yeah, we're talking an hour and 40 minutes.
Sorry, everyone.
A lot to talk about with Star Trek, apparently.
That's true, yeah.
Well, back in 2011, I find a movie going to see. A film by Jim Jarmusch starring Iggy Pop and me. But when the show was over, I had nowhere to go, so I ended up in a bar, sipping my bourbon and feeling low. One night, this wild-looking guy called Frank came over and asked me why I looked so sad as I drank. I told him about my post-movie blues, and then I saw the light in his glass eyes. He told me to go to the after-movie diner. I'm surprised you don't know there's no place finer. Come on now, let's go. Well, Mr. John Croswell, he's a man. He's a man with a beard and a man with a plan. Yeah, yes. With Jim and John and Madam Mark, tune into Fletch Cobbler to start. Yes, and reviews, opinions, interviews, comedy and news, Don Doler and his films and George Stover at the after-movie diner. Now it's 5 years old. There's nowhere finer. That's the place to go. Oh, the after-movie diner. It's where I go. Oh, that after-movie diner. It's one hell of a show. I just killed that rattlesnake with a skillet pan.